All right. Peace, everyone. My name is Malachi E. Robinson. Of course, I'm your facilitator for this evening. As you can see, you're here for Sparking Creativity, a wellness based approach. Again, my name is Malachi E. Robinson. I am a DC based artist. I am a man of like 10,000 things, but for the sake of time, I am a writer, screenplay writer specifically, filmmaker, storyteller. Um, on the other side, the wellness side, I'm a Reiki master, yoga practitioner, yoga instructor, meditation guide. I also lead outdoor events, so like hiking trips, nature walks, just everything wellness. I'm that person. So as you can see, I kind of have like a mix of creative and wellness interest and things, moving in those two spaces. And being in the creative and the wellness space for well over 15 years, it has informed me to create this content that we'll review tonight, which are four core practices that kind of make up sparking creativity. So yeah, I'm really excited to share this information because it's things that I've developed, in my own toolkit as a creative in terms of how to stay creative in the midst of burnout and stress and overwhelm, anxiety, pressure, uh, writer's block, creative blocks. How do we navigate those what seem to be natural parts of the creative process? Because I think everyone, as some form of fashion, has dealt with any of those things that I've mentioned or all of those things at the same time, myself included. And navigating those specific times has informed me to kind of create my own process. And I was able to take that process and put it into, this presentation and workshop that you'll experience this evening. I guess a couple housekeeping things. This is a very interactive workshop, so there are a lot of different moments where I want you to just answer these questions for yourself in terms of where you are in your process and what you intend to take from this workshop. So please have a notebook, or if you have your phone handy, your notes and your note apps, your note app in your phone, or whatever it is that you have nearby. Please take notes and really just take the opportunity to um, reflect and think about your journey and your current creative process. So, moving on to our next slide. Cool. So, as I do with all of my, wellness offerings, whether yoga classes or outdoor retreats, anything, I definitely want to make sure everyone sets an intention for what it is that they're about to embark on. So for the sake of this workshop, I have these three main intentions that I want us to do one or the other. You can read it aloud depending where you are, if you want to read it out loud or you want to read it to yourself, or if you want to write it down, or you can take a picture of this, screenshot it, and save it for later, whatever makes sense for you. But the goal is, I really want you to recite this in whatever way that makes sense for you in this moment. Um, Words have power, intentions and affirmations, all of that really allows you to kind of just set the space. And we'll talk a lot about that later in this workshop. But this first one here. So again, read it aloud with me, repeat it after me, or write it down, your choice. But the first one is, I give myself permission to create from a place of curiosity and care. I'm sorry, curiosity, care, and truth. So I'll read that again. I give myself permission to create from a place of curiosity, care, and truth. Our second one is, I trust my interest, honor my inner child, and stay open to spiritual guidance. And number three, our final one, I release pressure and choose a creative practice that supports my growth and well being. Awesome. So, those are our three intentions. So, hopefully, one or all three of those resonate with you and really speak to what might have interest you about this workshop. Wherever you are in your creative journey, whether you're currently experiencing burnout or you have experienced it, or maybe you've been going through forms of writer's block, or you're just stuck in a particular part of your creative process and you just don't know where to go next. I really hope that you're able to see this full workshop for what it is, and you're able to just to take from it and build out your toolkit. Everything may not apply, and so please keep that in mind. Everything may not apply. Some of these things you may be already doing and didn't realize you're doing it. Other things, you might be able to adapt and bring into your practice. So let's keep an open mind, open heart, and let's just roll to this next slide. So again, as I mentioned, I am the founder of Point Black Creative, based here in the DC area. It's an award-winning creative agency, a media house. We support and serve artists with everything from artist development, brand management, creative strategy, and also wellness-based practices, including Reiki to help uh, get rid of these blocks and really pinpoint where these things might be coming from, as well as outdoor offerings, nature hikes, outdoor retreats to really help, inspire and invigorate the creative process, and also that creative spirit within us all. And some of the offerings that you see on the side, everything I mentioned: creative consulting, artist development, management, media production. And you knew for this year's is really digging into the wellness offerings for creatives. I think that's a really important thing that I'm really trying to infuse into a lot of our offerings right now, is just really supporting the artist holistically. I feel like that's really important to really helping the artist move with full capacity. They're moving with a full cup and getting rid of this mentality of the hustle culture and grinding and moving with it with an empty cup. I think that is really important for us moving forward as creatives, because now is the time for us to be the unapologetic creatives that we are. Considering the world that we live in right now is, definitely the best time to be a creative, because there's so much to pull from. There's so much for us to be, um, diving into our, whatever we call it, our safe space or our bat cave or whatever it is that we do when we go into that tunnel and we create. Like it's that time for us to really dig deep and create some beautiful books, movies, TV shows, music videos, etc. Whatever it is that we do. So that's again, going back into our intention for this class, this workshop, is just to provide you with the tools, take it as you need it, and apply it and move into these other things when you feel like they're calling. All right. So, boom, our very first self inquiry question of the day. Like I said, this is a very interactive workshop. Yes, I'm going to be talking for the whole time considering the format, but it does require you to do some of the work. So, the very first self inquiry question, there are four. So, this is the first one. I just want you to ask yourself and you to say this to yourself. Again, you can write this down, you can screenshot it, you can read it out loud and take a moment to think about it. I'll actually give us 30 seconds to have that moment. But yeah, digging into this, what genuinely excites or sparks curiosity in me right now? And am I giving myself permission to explore it without pressure? I'll read that one more time. So, what genuinely excites or sparks curiosity in me right now? And am I giving myself permission to explore it without pressure? So before I give you a few seconds to, dig into this, really thinking about what moves you, what speaks to your soul, your spirit right now, what is really pulling your creative spirit. And, whether that's a song, that's a Broadway production that you just saw, whether that's a book you just read, or, an album you just listened to, or maybe an album you just rediscovered. Like, what if you think about right here in this moment, what speaks to you right now? What's something that you thought of when you woke up this morning, or what you thought of, in the middle of the day, it popped into your head and it gave you like a burst of inspiration? What is that? And depending what that thing is, did you allow the external factors to creep in? Did you start to think about, oh no, I'm overthinking the process? Or if it was an idea for a project or some type of future uh, venture that you're trying to embark on, like, did you start to chip away at it? Did you start to bring in self doubt? Uh, think about, what that thing is that gave you that boost of curiosity and excitement, and what was the process like afterwards? Did you dig into it more? Did you like, okay, I can do this, or did you pick it apart and pretty much self sabotage yourself? Like, think about that. I'll give you about 30 seconds to have a moment, think about that, and then we'll move on because this directly ties into our very first core practice within this workshop. So I'll be quiet and let you do the thinking. 30 seconds. Okay, so this is just a short time now, but feel free to, again, hopefully you had a chance to write this down or take a picture, screenshot it, save this for later if you want to revisit this question. Again, we have three more after this, so there's more opportunities for us to have these reflection moments, but hopefully you had an opportunity to think about this. Hopefully some things came up for you. And, again, I invite you to continue this exploration after this workshop and really start to do the work for yourself. But this directly goes into our first core practice, which is number one, creating from your own interest. So this is, you know, step one, very important. This is like our foundation for our conversation today, which is really creating from things that are already in your wheelhouse. There are things that you're already connected to. These aren't things that you're creating in your head that don't belong to you, meaning they're influenced by other people, they're influenced by other creators, they're influenced by things that you consider success. These are things that you already are passionate about. This is where we're going to start. So digging into this a little bit more, the goal here is to think about your art and the things that you are actually actively creating, are things that are already part of you. They're not things that you find in the trendiest, new thing that's happening on social media. It doesn't live in the algorithms. It's things that already lives in you. This is something that I've had to learn the hard way, of course. I think a lot of us have in some form of fashion. But, the things that really speak to me, I tried my hardest to let that flow naturally, whether that's the type of music that speaks to me. Today I might be into some real low key R&B music, and then tomorrow I might be feeling metal. Right? In this moment, I'm really into two things. One, Michael Jackson, and then I probably take another step into um, house music, and trying to like balance out, the inspiration that I get from both. Michael Jackson, of course, is, pretty much my childhood, and that kind of brings me back to my inner child. And then house music is something that really just brings me back to optimism and joy and happiness and creativity and inspiration. So that right there is creating from my own interest and allowing that to be the foundation, whether that's music or film or books, digging into what actually speaks to your creative spirit. Again, and looking at this slide here, you're pouring into what's already yours, what already belongs to you. Think about, what are the stories that keep replaying in your head, whether they're past memories or they're things that just keep replaying in your head and you can't control it. They may be visuals or ideas that keep floating in your head that maybe you're not acting on, but maybe that's a sign for you to act on them. They may be conversations that you've had with people that keep recircling in your mind. These may be the highs and the lows of your actual life that can be source material for anything that you're working on, whether that's a new painting or a new book or TV show, script, like whatever that is, it's probably already within you. And that last part you see there, the small things that may float by that you may not catch on to right away. But a lot of times, these things will circle back and come back a second time and a third time. And it's up to you to catch on and really see the connection, that then thread that connects everything, and that allows you to find again that source material for whatever it is that you're looking to act on. So the goal here again, just pouring into your interests, studying them, living in them, sharpening your skill set around them. And then again, when you build from there, your work becomes fluid and it becomes grounded in you. It becomes grounded in your identity. Becomes grounded in your uniqueness, and it sets it apart from anyone else's work. When you think about whatever lane that you're in, if you're a screenplay writer and you're thinking about how you want to shape the next romantic comedy, think about what that romantic comedy, how that romantic comedy is rooted and based in your own experience, because your experience as a human, again, we are all human and we're all living the human experience, but we all come from different walks of life. We all have different experiences. We think differently. We have free will to do all the things that we do. So your perspective is unique. So embrace that, live in that, allow that to be your source. Okay. And then moving in is like, creating from what you know, and also thinking about protecting your creative spirit. And, this kind of goes into various topics, and I'll try to keep it brief for the sake of time here today. But again, protecting your creative spirit, you want to think about this as, we're constantly, day to day, from the time we wake up and to the time we go to sleep, we are constantly absorbing content, other people's work, opinions, stress, things that stress us out, aesthetics, people's wins, people losses. We're absorbing all of this information all day, every day, whether we really realize it or not. And if you're not careful, those external influences and factors will really start to steer your vision into a different direction without you even knowing it. And before you know it, again, you're probably going down a path where you don't feel it. This journey is as authentic as it should be, and you're probably right. And the way for you to redirect that type of that type of path is, what we'll talk about in our second chapter. But um, it's up to you to take ownership and accountability for protecting your space, protecting your creative spirit, because allowing social media, allowing, external influences to dictate your voice, that will, inevitably, that will help you lose your voice. And sometimes the biggest power move that you can make as a creative is just taking a step back, disengaging, disconnecting, taking a break, resting, which I feel like a lot of us probably don't embrace as much as we probably should, just considering how fast paced a lot of our lives can be from responsibilities, job, work, you know, responsibilities, etc. But the biggest power move that we can make is, taking back our power, disconnecting, disengaging when we need to, listening to our creative spirit when it needs that space to breathe. And again, going back to social media, it's one of those things that, we're always going to be connected to. But giving you an example, a couple weeks ago, I had a screening of my short film. Technically, the very first screening of it within the past couple weeks, and leading up to it, 2 or 3 weeks prior, like I'm constantly posting, promoting, and sending emails, and just being online all day, every day, just trying to be active and visible and seen, and just trying to push, people to attend the screening, increase in visibility, and just, doing the whole promotion thing. Um, so literally the day of the screening, the day after the screening, I don't know, it was an intentional, intuitive type of thing. And I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna just take a break and disconnect and take a break from specifically Instagram. Cause I'm like, I don't necessarily think I live too much in Instagram more than I think I have a good balance, but I really just wanted to just take a hard step away and just disconnect. And that allowed me to just refocus on other things, which is rest. I really wanted to dig into some other projects because I was really focused on promoting and pushing the screening that was happening. And looking back, I'm like, I'm really grateful for that time that I had. And I'm kind of still in that space where I'm not trying to be as active on specifically Instagram just for the sake of, yeah, I'm trying to be in a creative space right now. I'm currently in a creative space right now. And to protect that creative space and my creative spirit at all costs, it's really creating that boundary with certain things. And that might be certain people where you have to really take that step back, which means, and I'll end it after this point, but it again, the biggest power move that you can have is curating your environment. If that means removing things, whether that's people, places, or things, whether that's going out every night or every weekend and you need to just take that time to just be in the house and, be in your space and use that time to create, do that. If that means going down your followers list and unfollowing people that you don't want to see on Instagram, unfollowing the pages that might impact you negatively, like, you know the content that, we all probably see on social media that might not be the most uplifting and optimistic content, just hit unfollow or maybe just mute it for a little while and come back to it whenever you have the capacity to. But just think about curating your environment, creating from your own interest, and most importantly, protecting your creative spirit at all costs and just being unapologetic about it too. Meaning, don't worry about what other people think and what their feelings might be if you choose, you know, yourself over doing X, Y, and Z. If you're trying to be in this creative space and that's your intention, then please invite yourself to just, again, curate that experience and that environment for yourself. I will stop there because I will keep going because there's so much more that I have built out. Excuse me, I have built out about this particular chapter, but we'll move on for the sake of time. All right. So that brings us to our next self inquiry question. So this is number two. So again, hopefully you have your notebook, your phone, whatever it is that you need to take down some notes. Um, but this next one, again, asking yourself, what did I love to do before I started questioning if I was good at it? And how can I bring that joy back into my creative practice? All right, I'll read that one more time. So, what did I love to do before I started to question if I was good at it? And how can I bring that joy back into my creative practice? So, again, I'll give you 30 seconds to, let the brain do its work on this particular question, and then we'll come back and move right into our second core practice, which ties right into this question here. So, feel free to take 30 seconds and we'll move forward in a second. All right. So, this next one, we're really going to have fun with this one. And I want you to have fun with this because this is probably one of my favorite parts of this whole concept is, well, let me move to the next slide. The next one is pouring into your inner child. This is the part where you can really have fun. And what I mean by that, we'll talk about that now. So, um, the this concept kind of just comes from, again, my own experience, and it's something that as I'm getting older, I'm realizing, the really link to creating like an infinite source of inspiration and creativity and just creating a fun environment for yourself when it comes to the creative process is really just doing anything and everything humanly possible to cater and nurture that relationship that you have with your inner child. And the activity that I invite everyone to do at their own leisure is, pick a age, any age, as, a younger self, a younger version of yourself, whether that's 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. Just pick a solid age and think about, just sit with that version of yourself and just write down all the key things that this version of yourself loved to do. Whether, what was that version of yourself, what was their favorite movie, what was their favorite music, their favorite artist, favorite foods, ice cream, what was their favorite ice cream flavors, their favorite TV shows, what made that younger self laugh, what made them feel safe, what made them, what was their favorite vacation spots, what do they, what do they dream about, what were the, um, games that you played in your room, uh, and also think about what are the things that you couldn't do as a kid, all the things that you dreamed about doing as a kid that unfortunately you weren't able to do. Like, think about what those things were, the adventures that you never really got to go on, but you imagine them in your head, the dreams that you talked yourself out of, and then the moments that you felt like you were either silenced or, your dreams weren't necessarily taken seriously. And just think about all those things. What did this younger self look like, feel like? What were they experiencing? What moved them? What excited them? And start with that practice. Again, just writing down, what that version of yourself, again, writing down all those interests, all those things that that younger self never got able to do, and realizing that you, at your older self, the older version of yourself, you have the ability to, again, nurture that relationship with that younger self. This isn't just about nostalgia and, reliving your wildest dreams. Like, no, this is about remembering who you were before you were in survival mode, thinking about, remembering, who you were before pressure and expectations and everything helped to shape who you are and who you identify as today. Removing the limitations, removing the boundaries, removing anything that prevented you from being your authentic self as a 7-year-old or 10-year-old or 12-year-old. Because, nurturing the younger you realize that you were limitless. You didn't have any limitations. You thought freely, you moved freely, you moved at the beat of your own drum. A lot of us at our big age, as kids, we went outside, we played until the sun went down, we explored, we got injured, we got hurt, we came back home and probably, played some more in the house. Like we had like this what seems like, the dream childhood, or at least the free, imaginative, you know, side of yourself was once there. So the goal here is to reconnect with that younger self. And why this matters for creativity, as you see on the page, regularly reconnecting with your inner child helps you to do all the following things: release perfectionism, increase productivity, strengthen imagination, restores your confidence, unlocks inspiration, and it unlocks loads and loads of inspiration, reignites your curiosity and your excitement as a creative. This is, and again, this is why I said this is, probably one of the most exciting parts for me is that I daily try to, excuse me, daily I try to do at least one thing for my inner child. That might be rewatching a movie that was a childhood favorite, whether that was like, a horror movie or some type of fantasy movie or a cartoon. The other day, I was like rewatching all of like the Nickelodeon animation and, live action shows from like the 90s and the early 2000s. I'm very into nature walks, because I used to do that a lot as a kid without thinking it was a nature walk, but I used to just walk outside and not really have any sense of where I was going. I would just walk and explore and observe my surroundings. And knowing now that what I was doing was forest bathing and tree hugging, I didn't know that that was a thing. I was just naturally doing it. And now, 20, 30, 40 years, well, 30 years later, I'm teaching people how to forest bathe and nature walk. And it's part of my toolkit for creativity and sharing that with other people and realizing that comes from my inner child. And again, thinking about that, framing this part of the conversation in terms of how can we reconnect to that inner child. That's our goal here. So starting with that activity, writing down your interest as your younger self, whatever age that was, and creating an action plan, creating a detailed, accountable action plan for how you're going to implement this activity. What can you do once a day to take care and nurture that relationship with your inner child? Are you taking yourself to the movies once a week or once a month? If the monetary side is, a little bit limited, maybe just do things in the house. Maybe you can paint. Maybe you can rewatch a movie that you haven't seen since you were 5 years old. Like think about those things, playing video games, going, experiencing things, going to a carnival, going to the arcade, playing some of your favorite, Atari or Super Nintendo games that you haven't played in, decades. Like think about all these things that can really help you reconnect. I can go on and on about this because, like I said, it's one of my favorite practices because it really helps keep my tank it helps keep my tank full with creative juices. And whenever I feel that engine or that fuel tank start to get a little low, I go right to the things that help fill it back up. I go to that go to movie, or I play video games, or I go outside. I have like a whole list of things that I can tap into. So think about that. The goal here is to explore, to feel good doing it, to play, to experiment, and most importantly, just be present during it and see what comes up. Because you may have some things come up. Have that journal nearby, take some notes, move accordingly. All right. Moving on to our next one, our self inquiry question number 3. Again, asking yourself, what practices help me feel most connected, grounded, and guided? And how can I invite that energy into my creative process? I'll read that one more time. What practices help me feel most connected, grounded, and guided? how can I invite that energy into my creative process? So, again, I'll give you a few seconds to think about that, write it down, have a moment of reflection, and we'll continue right on as we move to the second half of our workshop this evening. Okay, so this is another favorite because I think again this comes from personal experience and it really has helped shaped my perspective and my view on how I approach my creative process. Is that I had to realize this for myself that the creative process and my spiritual practice are synonymous. They are one. They are linked. They are connected. And that's why I said at the top, I'm an artist, I'm a writer, I'm a storyteller, I'm a filmmaker, but I'm also a Reiki master, I'm a yoga instructor, I'm a meditation guide, and I do all of these outdoor experiences and kind of weave everything all into one. I say all that because I'm all those things, and those two parts of my being, my creative side and my spiritual side, are not separate. For the longest time, I thought they were separate. When I was able to really think that the two are go hand in hand, because my spiritual practice keeps me grounded and rooted, while that so that it can allow my creative practice to flourish. Still be grounded, but it allows that creative practice to flourish. Again, like I said, for the longest time, I thought those two were separate, and through practice, through making mistakes, through realizing and looking at the similarities between these two parts of myself, I was able to make that connection and move accordingly, so that myself as a being, as a human, I was able to learn how to deepen my spiritual practice and my spiritual beliefs in order to allow my creative practice to flourish. So, and again, I'm not encouraging or um, asking you to adopt something different or believe in something that you don't believe into. No, this is for you to, again, create what that spiritual foundation is, whether you are Christian, Catholic, Baptist, Muslim, whatever, however you identify. This has nothing to do with religion. This is more so about, again, the spiritual grounding, the spiritual practice of whatever it is that you, however it is that you implement that into your creative practice, into your creative process. And so that can look like, simply doing a prayer. If you're not a prayer person, think of it as intentions or affirmations or meditating, doing breath work. Breath work is very essential to clearing the mind, creating clarity and focus, and inviting in, um, the creative juices, and allows the creative juices to start flowing. Because moving in, coming putting on my yoga and meditation hat, a lot of us don't realize that we don't breathe with intention. We breathe because our body breathes for us. But when we start to think about and framing it as intentional breathing, like taking intentional breaths in, like taking 3 breaths in, holding the breath, and exhaling out the mouth, like that, doing that 3 or 4 times in a row, you'll immediately start to feel different and better and lighter and more grounded. So, thinking about things like that, how can you introduce these small practices into your creative process instead of just going right into it? If you're a writer and you just open up your book and start writing, think about that process. If you just open your book and you start writing and you all of a sudden hit a roadblock one sentence in, think about what you can do before you grab that pen. Like that can be lighting some candles, that can be, taking a few moments, taking a breathing exercise. Go to YouTube. We all have resources. Go to YouTube, type in, meditation, meditative music, healing frequency music, lo-fi music, whatever it is that helps you create that space, just bring it in. Journaling before starting a project is really helpful. Just getting the ideas out of your head, and again, setting your own space. It kind of goes back to our first core practice, which also ties into curating your environment. Creating the space that you create so that it is safe, it is comfortable, and it's affirming to whatever it is that you're working on, so that it's not working against you. Um, Also thinking about, well, I'll before I get into that, just giving you a quick kind of like case study in terms of, how this comes into how my own experience pours into this and where these ideas came from. Because this was probably 4 years ago, 2022. I had just ended work on a creative project. It was a short film, you know, did amazing in the film festivals, and we did like this big exhibit event, and everything, just turned out great. And I took that momentum and wanted to move right into the next project because I'm like, all right, things are rolling. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Script was already done. We started casting for this project probably in November of 2022. And then after casting, I hit a roadblock or creative block, and something was just telling me to stop. And part of me wanted to keep moving and forcing this project to happen, but something in my spirit was just telling me to stop. So eventually I listened, I obliged, and I'm like, all right, I'll sit down, I'll wait. And so fast forward to December around the Christmas holiday season at the end of December. And I'm literally sitting, meditating, had my journal right in front of me. And you know, f- of course, for weeks, I'm just like waiting for something, waiting for a message, waiting for a sign, waiting for a symbol, waiting for an idea. Cause I feel like something was telling me to stop for a reason. It wasn't for a particular reason. I thought I'm just like, something's telling me to pause. And this one day, as I'm literally sitting, waiting for this message to come, as as I was meditating, I saw s- extremely suddenly an entire vision of a documentary that I was being tasked to create. And I literally saw the vision from start to finish. It was literally them, ancestors telling me what this documentary looked like, what's the purpose, what information should be included, what's the structure of the documentary. They actually, you know, showed me what it looked like. They showed me what was the impact and how people were going to be impacted by it. And, so as quickly as I'm seeing and hearing all these ideas, like I'm writing everything down line by line. And I literally wrote down the entire structure and vision for this documentary, even the title, the just how everything was going to be broken up and all the pieces of the story. And all that to say, prior to this moment, I was already doing the research without knowing I was doing a documentary. I was, doing research on my ancestry and my ancestors, and came across this incredible story of my great grandmother, um, uh, my seventh great grandmother. And yeah, I saw the vision for this documentary, and I'm not at that point was not a documentarian, had no interest in doing a documentary. But long story short, I followed this path. I trusted the process. I trusted the ancestors who delivered this message to me. And, as much as along the road, I wanted to quit, but I had to keep going because this was a specific message for me. And I was, uh, I was determined to see it to the finish line. All that to say, all these years later, the documentary came out in 2024. It won Best Documentary at the Prince George's Film Festival right here in Maryland. It's, racked up other, selections, across the nation. And um, yeah, it was an award-winning documentary. I won a countless amount of grants for this project to get it produced and finalized. And I'm like, that was a particular moment. And going back to creativity and spiritual alignment, I sat for weeks trying to figure out, like, how am I going to move forward, because something is telling me to not move forward with this specific project. There's a missing piece. All that to say, creating that creative space, safe space for myself, allowed me to move forward and act on this particular project, and it was extremely beneficial. Let's move on. So this last one, moving into our fourth part of our core practice, our final part. What is one small, consistent action I can commit to that honors my creativity and supports the artist I'm becoming? I'll say that one more time. What is one small, consistent action I can commit to that honors my creativity and supports the artist I am becoming? This is important because this is going to really round out our entire core practices and really help to create our favorite word moving forward, which is accountability. We are creating accountability for everything that we've talked about this far. And how we're going to do that, I'm going to tell you. Moving on to this next slide. You know, creating accountability starts with yourself first. And these are some basic questions you can ask yourself, sitting with yourself and asking, why do I actually want to create in general or something specific? What's stopping me from creating? What am I avoiding? What small step can I take today? And what can make this process feel more aligned and sustainable? Sometimes, accountability just really just looks like creating discipline, meaning how can you do one small thing per day if you are struggling with keeping up with yourself, or you're struggling to keep up with a particular project, if you're constantly getting overwhelmed and you just don't know how to start, you don't know how to keep yourself motivated during that whole time that you're second guessing and somewhat sabotaging the project or yourself. Think about how can you just take it in doses instead of overwhelming yourself and doing everything all at once. If that's not attainable in this moment, take one small step per day. Take one part of it and spread it out over 7 days or 5 days per week, and figure out how can you start to build momentum. That's really the key, especially when it comes to burnout and creative blocks and writer's block and anything that gets you off of your uh the highest version of yourself. Is really just creating accountability, taking it step by step and allowing yourself to see the results over time instead of wanting to see everything all at once. And again, like I said, just take one task at a day. Take it slow. Maybe today you write one paragraph. Maybe today you just research, an idea. Maybe today is just journaling, or maybe you just send one email that, asks someone for support or sponsorship, or someone to help you with a particular project. Just do one small thing. Doesn't matter how big or small or medium size, just take it slow. And again, look at progress over time, not necessarily what's happening right here in the moment, because a lot of us will get really overwhelmed by just the overall big project versus how we can break it down into small, actionable steps. So, before we move on to that, that is pretty much accountability section. And again, just adding a couple more things here. Accountability can start with you being accountable for yourself. If you're not in a space to do that, you can also invite someone else, invite a partner, invite a significant other, invite a close friend, a business partner, anyone to help you be accountable. Have like weekly check-ins, have weekly business meetings, or just opportunities for you both to be accountable for each other, and have, that accountability check-in. Maybe that's a group. If you have a friend group that all is working on various business projects, maybe that's something for you all to create within yourself. But just think about what works for you. Whether you're able to do this solo, maybe you need a buddy or a partner to collaborate, or think about how you can create some type of group. Create a group chat, create a WhatsApp group, however that can work for you in terms of creating accountability. Because if you again, are not the person to do things solo and you need someone else to keep you accountable, that's okay. Do it. Just don't wait for that person to find you. Go ahead and look and make that happen for yourself. So that is where I'm going to stop. There's so much more to cover, and I hate to have to limit this to 30 or 45 minutes, but there's so much more to cover. But for the sake of anyone that's interested in taking a deeper dive into our four core practices, you're welcome to take this QR code or visit our website. I do have an ebook that's going to be available on June 23rd. That's sparking creativity, wellness based approach, and I'm really building out I've built out the core four practices, a little bit more in detail, and it gives you a lot of really great interactive activities and things that you can do for yourself, or the journal, or just different ways for you to be accountable for your creative process. So take that QR code, it takes you to Amazon. You can pre-order the ebook that'll be available on June 23rd. And that is that. Some additional resources that I wanted to share. Feel free to jot this down or screenshot it, take a picture of it, whatever you need. But all of these books have been extremely helpful with my creative journey, and I hope hopefully some of these may be familiar, or if they're not familiar, please feel free to you know read at your own leisure and see how it can apply to your own creative practice and really build out your toolkit when it comes to keeping yourself creative and keeping that creative spirit flowing. All right. And the last thing I ask is just please stay connected with us. Again, my name is Malachi E. Robinson. You can follow me on Instagram at The Spiritual Thug. Also, have another page, Point Black Creative. You can join my Patreon, where we have just creating a hub for other creatives to have deeper conversations around topics like these, and just have a space for accountability and sharing resources, and of course, sharing each other's work and art. Yeah, the conversation doesn't stop here. Feel free to connect with me again on Instagram, and we can exchange information, emails, etc. And I would love to hear your feedback and all of your all the things that you're working on and how this workshop was able to support in whatever way. All right. So I thank you all so much for joining this workshop. I'm really grateful for this space and opportunity to present this to you all. And again, my name is Malachi E. Robinson. You can follow me at The Spiritual Thug on Instagram. And yeah, it was a pleasure serving you all. Peace and have a good night. Peace and blessings to you all. And hopefully connect with you all soon. Take care. Peace. Good night.
On the 12th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 12 stars are leaping,
11 drummers drumming,
10 ladies dancing. That's the problem. You don't have a choice.
one thing I didn't do was
It don't matter. The fact that you gotta start the sentence with the only thing I didn't do. Does he not get that? The only thing I didn't do. That's the point.
Yeah.
Get out, man.
Yeah, I mean, how argue because she never give me credit for what
I didn't.
Okay.
What is? How my journey with being a parent evolved, I would have never even guessed that. I would have never said that was going to happen a day in my life where I would not enjoy being married, where I would not enjoy being a mother.
at my crib, just chilling. We're gonna let y'all see this flood at Christmas.
You know, we tried real hard to do this just right, but no, they wouldn't let us. They just wouldn't let us.
Yeah.
We wanted this to be perfect, but you know.
Yeah, whatever.
Hey. Delphi. Delphi.
Make a face, Debbie.